而这场经济衰退到现在为止，从2008年到现在总共8年了。按照 Foreign Affairs 他的观察，首先，整个全世界现在重返国族主义，而另外一个部分，整个经济看不到未来。看不到未来的情况里头呢，我们从金融海啸来看，它到欧债危机，它其实是有一个脉络的。金融海啸当然重创了全世界的经济，而欧债危机是什么呢？欧债危机是过多的福利开支，这些国家无以为继。为什么会过多的福利开支呢？一个当然是因为选举，它过度的乱开选举支票，包括退休年龄太早，还有工时太短，这都使得欧洲国家出现了欧债危机。但是有一个危机是全世界所有OECD 国家或者台湾也都逃不掉的，也就是未来即使我们所面临的金融海啸问题，银行的体系慢慢比较健全了，我们都逃不掉的一场经济必然的危机，就叫做人口老化。前美国联准会的主席 Greenspan 就提到，其实现在全世界在面临新的制造业重新出发，或者是寻找新的经济模型的时候，那么在谈到要刺激消费，所以这些议题里头，它的核心焦点都环绕着人口老化4个字。
But we have a global problem of a shortage in productivity growth.
前美联准会主席葛林斯潘，全球财经界最重量级的人物。5月27日接受福斯商业新闻专访，畅谈当前世界低迷的经济惨况。
It's not only the United States, but it's pretty much around the world, and it's being caused by the fact that the populations everywhere in the Western world, for example, are aging, and we're not committing enough of our resources to fund that. We could have anticipated 25 years ago, and in fact we did, but nobody's done anything about it. And this is the crisis which has come upon us. It's slowing productivity because entitlements are crowding out savings and hence capital investment. Capital investment is a critical issue in productivity growth, and productivity growth in turn is the crucial issue in economic growth. So we're running at the end of this period to a state of disaster unless we turn it around. It should be the central issue of the presidential debate, because unless and until we can rein in entitlements, which have been rising at a 9% annual rate in the United States and comparable levels throughout the world, we're going to find that productivity is going to maintain itself at a very low rate of increase.
他以历经4任美国总统、联准会主席任期长达20年的资历，慷慨陈词，语气急切却又不全然悲观。
Do you think we're heading into a recession?
I don't think that's our problem. Our problem is not a recession, which is a short-term economic problem. I think we have a very profound long-term problem of economic growth at the time when in the Western world there is a very large migration from being a worker into being a recipient of social benefits, as it's called. And this is legally mandated in all of our countries. The size has got nothing to do with the rate of growth in economic activity. But if we stay down at the 2% economic growth or less in the United States and elsewhere, we're not going to be able to fund what we already have legally obligated to spend.
Wonder whether you agree with Mr. Stockman that it could be too late, that we could be on the verge of a big old market economic collapse. That's what he said.
I would certainly not go that far. The data show, shockingly, that since 1965, the sum of gross domestic savings and entitlements as a percent of GDP has been remarkably flat. And what that tells us is all the way back to 65, we have essentially been seeing a $1 to $1 trade-off between entitlement growth and gross savings decline. And that, despite the fact that we are borrowing savings from abroad, has kept our rate of capital investment as a percent of GDP going down. That in turn has meant that productivity has slowed down, which means that economic activity will slow down, which means that entitlements will be more and more of a problem.
偏偏2016可能接棒上台解决问题的美国两党总统候选人希拉蕊和川普都没有意识到问题的严重性。
Neither of them prominent candidates in this country are addressing that, and I guess what I'm asking you is, if you had to choose, I mean, whose policies were least worrisome, whose would they be? Are you a fan of Donald Trump?
Not exactly.
So if we were seeing he and Hillary Clinton, where would you go?
You're giving me a very tough choice, and I think at this stage I will not comment on the issue. I'll have to figure it out.
But you know, I was thinking of the migrants as well, Alan, and what's going on. A lot of nations are building walls, and some for very valid reasons. They're concerned, their safety, attacks in Paris, Brussels, what have you. So you can understand where it's coming from. But do you worry the global message this is sending, that it's a bunch of, I think one economist likened to a lot of tents locked up in the same campground?
Look, we've been through generation after generation in which free trade has propelled our country 100 years after we were sort of hanging on the eastern edges of the Atlantic seaboard, barely surviving. 100 years later, we were the most productive economy in the world. Now, that took an extraordinary amount of effort, but fundamentally, it was based on free trade. And if you cut down on imports, for example, you have to ask yourself, whose purchase are you basically cutting down? If people, for example, can get much cheaper clothes from China, you shut down trade and they will be paying much higher prices. I don't see to whose advantage this is. The presumption that it is a job killer does not square with the historical facts. Trade is a positive force for employment at all levels of the economy.
Did Alan Greenspan build a wall along the Mexican border?
I don't have the physical staff to do it.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. Alan Greenspan, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for taking the time.